In looking at veterans as potential employees, it's important to recognize that most veterans have no disabilities whatsoever. And there's a prejudice about this sometimes. There's an assumption that there might be some issue that the potential employer should be probing. But if there is something that's identified, usually by the potential employee, as a disability, we're a place that wants to know about that and do everything we can to accommodate it. That's true for everybody who potentially could enter our workforce or our university. And we can do that with all of us working together on that. Sometimes the individual at the hiring end may not know what accommodations we can make. That's where they go to senior personnel in HR or other individuals to talk about it. These accommodations can be pretty straightforward. Sometimes it's one thing an individual can't do, but with job sharing, we can accommodate it. Sometimes it's a technical issue that the individual can't do, but otherwise they're fully competent, and we can override that with some technical accommodation. There are a variety of ways to do this. The best organizations can do it, and if we do it, we get the best workforce.
Yeah, everybody who serves, I mean, whether you are on the back lines or front lines, we're all under, there's certain stress and pressure. And I think when we come back, sometimes we struggle, as veterans when, people don't understand what we've gone through.
Some of the challenges in transitioning from military life to civilian life can be pretty difficult to take on. You're becoming a veteran, and how do you do that? Once you get your papers leaving the military, a whole new life opens up. And then what is it? Where do you go? What do you do?
I mean, a lot of men and women join the military because they don't have, might not have a strong family or family network. So they look to the military as their family. And when you disengage, or when you demobilize, or when you finish your enlistment, it's difficult. It's difficult because you don't have that structure around you, and it's sometimes a little more challenging than men and women realize.
The military life can become somewhat easy in regards to the structure that's provided there. Someone's going to wake you up in the morning. You've got accountability from your team, your squad, your platoon, whatever element you're in.
All the work we're doing, especially with employers, trying to educate them about these challenges and making them aware and giving them the tools so they can help deal with the reintegration, which sometimes is difficult because in the military you are pretty much you're told what to do, when to do it, where to go, what to eat, when to sleep. I mean, literally every day of your life, every minute of your life is managed by somebody. And then all of a sudden you come back into the community and now you're like, wow.
When you transition into the civilian life, that accountability's gone, that structure's gone, and that can be a difficult transition for a lot of folks leaving military life to civilian life. How do I start from scratch with some skills that I learned in the military and take that forward and have success with it? And one of the difficult parts in gaining civilian employment is, what do you do with your resume? In the military, you learn how to speak a different language, you learn how to talk different, walk different, so your resume is naturally going to look a little different. Probably going to be filled with lots of acronyms and language that a standard or your normal civilian just doesn't understand. So being able to translate that is difficult for the veterans, and it's also difficult for the hiring managers and people in HR. How do they translate that? There's valuable information there. There's a potential valuable candidate, but if you can't understand what's on the resume, it doesn't do you any good. There's ways to go about this. If the hiring managers, the HR team, can maybe ask another vet to translate that for them. There's one way.
Within our departments, within our overall Rush community, I mean, we've got a strong, sense of core values with our care values. I mean, with what we provide to our patients at large or to ourselves. But embedded in there are these, veterans, that, again, espouse those same values. We've all had different experiences. And so I think it behooves us to really make sure we educate, our folks.
So with today's veterans, there's a good deal of needs. There's programs put in place here at Rush to help out with those needs, whether it's mental health support at the Road Home program, employment assistance with the Enabled Vet program, internship pathways there. Rush has taken a lot of effort to assist and help the veteran population accomplish their goals, whether that's working here at Rush, if you're a patient here at Rush. Rush really takes care of their vets.
But it's just like anything else. It's like anyone else that we serve. I mean, whether it's associates, and employees working together, or if it's people, employees and associates helping our patients and working with our clients. It's just having that sensitivity and awareness and respect, and again, not being afraid because someone might be a veteran. I mean, that's not, we need to kind of bury that and not have that fear.
It can be really stigmatizing when you're filling out your paperwork with HR and you have to hit that box. Are you a veteran or have you served in the United States Armed Forces? Not everybody chooses to answer that question. It's, for one reason or the other, people who have served choose not to answer that or choose to answer that they did not serve. Some of that could be stigma related around what they did in the military, where they've been, what they've done, what they've seen, and how that may negatively or positively influence their decision to be hired. If they've self-identified to their hiring managers, maybe choose not to identify with their coworkers because that might alienate them, or there might be some sort of stigma. People's opinions on the military in the office setting might differ, or people might not be as pro-military as they would like, so they choose not to discuss their time in service with their fellow coworkers. And I think that does a general disservice. I think if you're open and you're honest and you share your experience, for the better or for the worse, you're at the very least you're educating someone. You're educating your coworker, the person you share a cubicle or a desk with, or you're sharing with your office workers what your experience was in the military, how it shaped you, and who you are. Yeah, and I think the importance of identifying that you're a veteran, especially if you have disabilities, and being open and honest up front about your disabilities and what they are, can go a long way into helping your career here at Rush. If things arise, over the course of your employment here, and you need to address that, it's good to let folks know what you're addressing and why. Being able to discuss that openly with the people you work with and you work for will help expedite that process, will help others be able to help you better. I think that's the great mission of any nonprofit or of Rush is it all starts with help. How can we help? How can we help you, and how can we help you succeed?
When you have someone who has got a physical disability, you can see that outward, but it's those invisible wounds, that sometimes we're challenged with because we don't know. I mean, there are so many men and women, even from the Vietnam era, that still battle with those invisible struggles, and they still don't want to come in, but they'll figure out how to kind of manage through it.
We like to call them the invisible wounds of war. There's the obvious wounds, blast and burn victims have, but some of the wounds that a lot of the veterans that have served in the most recent conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan suffer from are invisible. Mental health needs related to post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injuries, or sexual trauma that occurred while serving in the military. In my experience in working here at Rush, Rush has been an amazing place that's incredibly inclusive for people with disabilities to work. I think what works for civilians as far as accommodations and disabilities works for veterans as well. And Rush has been really great at being able to make those accommodations for not only myself, but the other veterans that I work with and the other veterans that work here at Rush. For example, let's take military sexual trauma. If you have an employee who is dealing with sexual trauma that occurred while they were in military service, and maybe you've learned a little bit about some of the details of what happened, and maybe I think that could help go a long way into improving the ability to work for that veteran employee, whether that's working either closer or further away from folks if they're have personal space and boundary issues, if it's flexible times starting, when your day starts, when your day ends, being cognizant of some of the issues that that veteran's dealing with, and approaching that in sort of a logical manner. If they have difficulties being surrounded in an all-male work environment, maybe an all-male work environment isn't the best fit for that person. Maybe there's another place that they can, physical setting that they can work in, or time slots, or different accommodations that can be made to work with that veteran. Same thing goes with post-traumatic stress. Or traumatic brain injuries. There's steps that hiring managers can do. There's steps that managers can do, and employees can do to make their lives a little bit easier, or at least as normal as everyone else. Whether that's some of those start times and end times, or being able to be flexible if someone has therapy appointments, standing appointments on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. Maybe they need to run away from the office for an hour or two and talk to a therapist and then come back. Being able to make those accommodations and working out the hourly balance on the back end is something that I think everybody can work around and certainly accomplish. As far as traumatic brain injuries go, and difficulties with cognition, I think the key to all of this is just understanding not just the veteran, but anybody that works here at Rush, understanding their needs and what their needs are, and being able to have an open and honest conversation about those, and figuring out how to make everyone's work life as smooth and simple as possible.
As a veteran myself, it gives me great feeling and a great honor to know that there's an institution like Rush that is stepping up to help these men and women and their families. And that's what really is, from my perspective, amazing, because you have a large academic medical center like Rush, and it still has a feel in some respects like it's like a community hospital, because of the people and the way they take care of each other. Associate to associate, employee to employee, or even when our patients come in. I mean, the consistency of care, and compassion. I'll be honest, I've not seen that at any other academic or other institution that I've worked at.